Congratulations on unboxing your new Cricut machine. I bet you're wondering, where do I begin? Well, don't stress. I'm here to walk you through all the steps for completing your very first Cricut project. We're going to create a name decal using vinyl. Here are some items you'll need. First, you'll want to locate an object where you'll place your vinyl decal. This could be a drink bottle, a jar, or even a blank notebook. You'll also need vinyl that complements the colour scheme of your object. You'll need a green standard grip mat or a blue light grip mat, some transfer tape, and a scraper or credit card. The second step is to measure the area where your decal will be placed. Note this down for later use. Now we're going to create the decal in Cricut Design Space. You should already have this software downloaded if you've gone through the Cricut setup process, but if not, I'll pop a link to the download in the description of the video. Your front screen should look something like this. To create a new design, we're going to the top right-hand corner of the screen where it says New Project. In the middle section, we have what's called our canvas, and we can see that it's a grid. This is effectively the area you'll use to design your projects, and it has grid lines to make sure you line everything up. On the far right-hand side, we have the Layers panel, and this is where all of your objects will appear when you add them onto your canvas. To create text, we're going to click on the text button over here. When you click it, some pre-filled text will appear in a default font. You can now see in the right-hand panel, we have a text box. Now let's edit our text. Double-click on the text box until it looks highlighted. Then start typing your name or whatever word you want on your decal. When we use the text box, it will always select a default text font, which is a little bit boring, so let me show you how to jazz it up. Make sure that your text box is selected. I know it's selected when there are white boxes in the corners here. Go up to the top left corner where it says Font and click the drop down. You'll be presented with hundreds of fonts to choose from. And you can see at the top here, you can choose Cricut fonts or system fonts, which are the fonts you have stored on your computer. If you don't have a Cricut Access subscription, some of these fonts will come with a charge, so be sure to pick something that is free. You will see the word kerned in your font selection box. When a font is cursive, the letters will have tails that line up and touch the adjoining letter. A kerned font will join the cursive letters together, so you don't need to do anything. Whereas a non-kerned font will separate your letters and then you need to bring them back together to make a complete cursive word. For the purpose of keeping this simple, let's keep the kerned box ticked, so we don't need to modify any spacing. Go through your list of fonts until you find one that you really like. I've chosen this font. You'll notice once I select my font, it will change the way my decal looks on my canvas. I will often try different fonts to see how everything looks before I land on my final design. Let's resize our decal so that it fits the object we're going to stick it to. So let's refer to the measurements we took earlier and enter that width into the size box up here, which has a W on it. You can also hover your mouse over the corner of your text box and then drag it larger or smaller, but I find it more accurate to use the size boxes up here. If you're using a cursive text where the letters join together, you'll notice when you zoom in close that there are lines separating each of the letters. Your Cricut will try to cut these out rather than cutting the word as one entire shape. So we need to weld. To weld, we click on the word and then we click on Combine and Weld. Welding turns your individual cuts into one single shape, removing those lines in between. This step is not necessary if you're using a font that has all of the letters separated. This is completely optional, but if you're feeling adventurous, you can create a little shape to add alongside your name as well. Go over to the Shapes tab and choose a shape that you'd like to use. I'm going to choose this star, and it will be added as a second object on my canvas and in the Layers panel over here. You can then resize it to match the decal. Now there's an important thing to remember when it comes to cutting out your shapes and your decal. Your Cricut will sort objects onto mats so that it knows to cut it out. If I leave my project with the decal and the shape in the same color, Cricut will place them both on the same cutting mat, which means they'll cut from the same color vinyl. If I want my decal to be a different color to my text, I can select my text decal, go to the top here and change the little colored box to a different color. Your Cricut will then place it on a separate cutting mat, which allows you to cut from different types of vinyl. Your Cricut machine doesn't actually know what color vinyl you're using on your mat, so the colors are just a guide for you to remember what color you want to use for each vinyl piece, and this is especially useful when you're cutting out lots of different components. So we've prepared our name decal and a small shape to go along with it, and we're ready to cut it out. Click Make It in the top right hand corner. If you're using an Explore 3 or a Maker 3 series machine, you'll be presented with this screen, and I'm going to use a matte, so click on Matte. If you want to go matteless and use Cricut Smart Materials, you should select matteless. Now you won't see this step if you're using an older model Cricut Explore or Maker. This is our matte screen. You can see I have two mattes on the left hand side panel, and they are in the colors that I chose on the canvas earlier. Then we're going to click Continue. Ensure your computer is connected to your Cricut machine using either the USB cable that came in your Cricut box or Bluetooth connection. And you'll be presented with setting a base material screen. This is a very important step to making a successful cut. The material you set here will determine the amount of pressure applied by your Cricut fine point blade and the number of passes it will make. If you set the wrong material, it can result in your decal not completely cutting through or cutting too hard into the backing and into your mat. So check the vinyl you've purchased for your project, then match the material here. We can click Browse All Materials and search for the relevant one. So in my case, I'm choosing Premium Vinyl Permanent Glossy for the teal color, and then Premium Vinyl Frosted Glitter for the star, which applies more pressure. Each mat will need its own material selected. Now you're ready to make your cut. We're going to cut a piece of vinyl that will fit the decal size we're about to cut. Take out your Cricut mat and remove the plastic film from the top of the mat. Make sure you keep this plastic film because you'll need to put it back on your mat once you've finished cutting. It effectively keeps your mat sticky and prevents dust and other particles adhering to the mat. Place your vinyl piece in the top left-hand corner of your mat, ensuring it fits within the white box area. I'm using a brayer to ensure that my vinyl is stuck firmly down and there are no air bubbles underneath. I'll pop links to these products in the description below. If your fine point blade isn't already inserted, you should insert it now. We're going to feed our Cricut mat into the Cricut machine, ensuring that vinyl piece remains in the top left-hand corner, and the corner of your mat is under these pieces, so the mat goes in straight. Click the flashing load button when you're ready and gently guide your mat into your machine by holding the base here. Your Cricut will load the mat and the cutting mechanism will do a little back and forth movement. Once completely loaded, the Cricut button will begin flashing. Depending on your machine, this will either look like a Cricut icon or a play button. Click this button when it starts flashing to commence your cut. Your Cricut will then complete the cut, and on your screen it will show the percentage complete and stop once finished. Click the Load, Unload button again to remove your mat. Remove your vinyl by bending your mat away from the vinyl. Don't pull your vinyl upwards, as it can tear or cause air bubbles in the vinyl piece. Now we need to go through the process of weeding. Weeding involves removing all the extra pieces of vinyl to leave our decal behind, ready to transfer. You can use a weeding tool, which is a bit like a tiny hook, or a pair of precision tweezers to remove the excess vinyl. We're going to start with the outside piece first by separating the vinyl away from the backing and carefully lifting. If you've successfully cut with the correct material settings, it should come right up. Then we remove the space between our words in these little loops and holes. Your decal should look something like this when you've finished weeding. Now we're ready to transfer our decal onto our water bottle. So we're going to cut a piece of transfer tape. Transfer tape will help you lift your vinyl piece in one go so you can stick it onto your object. We're going to remove the backing off the transfer tape and place it over our decal. Then, using a scraper or a credit card, we're going to scrape over the top of the transfer tape to ensure the decal is adhered. Turn it over and scrape the back too. Separate the decal and the transfer tape from the vinyl backing. I do this from the back so I can fold the backing at almost a 90-degree angle. You should be left with the transfer tape and the decal underneath. Grab your water bottle and line up the decal using the red grid marks to help keep everything straight, and stick it down. Then, using your scraper to adhere the decal to the water bottle. Again, at a 90-degree angle, carefully roll back the transfer tape, leaving the decal on the water bottle. For our star, I'm using strong grip transfer tape because glitter vinyl is very difficult to pick up and needs stickier transfer tape. If you're using good quality permanent vinyl, you do not need to seal your water bottle, but I do recommend leaving it to cure for 72 hours before you wash it. To keep it long lasting, wash it by hand. Congratulations! You've made your very first Cricut project. Leave me a comment if you get stuck along the way and I'll be sure to respond. Thanks for watching.